is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable and our long-suffering editor, R. Alex Murray, who is here to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, the 20-Sided Tavern, in which he's a cast member. Alex, how are you doing today?
I am excellent. It's so lovely to be here in real time with you. I'll stop and start the recordings where I know I'm going to need an edit later, so we're way out in front of that. Thanks for having me.
It's so weird because we're constantly talking to you, but you're not here usually, and folks don't know this, but we're constantly like, all right, hold on, Alex, we're gonna take that again, or like
all the time. And
I usually just like plow ahead. I screw up and then sorry, Alex, I'm doing it again. But now you're talking back, and I don't know how to handle that. I feel like people have a relationship like that with me and John, actually, where like we're constantly talking to them, but they don't talk back. So
it's exactly the relationship I have with you guys, because I get to talk back to you while I'm also manipulating the audio, and I'm also going like, listen, here's the thing about what the word orc actually means, Stu. Come on, get with it. Sometimes I send like emails to Hambone that are like, hey, great episode, here's the bill, here's the invoice. Also, the thing about Return to the Dark Tower actually is, and you get like a full-on fan email from me as well.
It's great. It's great, but like, for us, it's like, computer. Like, that's, yeah. But now now the computer's talking back. Hal's alive.
God, Hal won't close the door.
Well, you are here today to talk about the 20-Sided Tavern. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what Dungeons & Dragons, the 20-Sided Tavern, is all about?
Yeah, for sure. We'll jump in. Oh, you know what? This is 2 official Dungeons & Dragons podcasts that I've done with you, too. Now,
this is true.
So now when you nerds finally talk about the new PHB or whatever, you're going to be obligated to have me on. I'm the official, well, I can't say that. Let me say that right now. I represent WotC and Hasbro, not at all. I work for a whole different company. But yeah, so the 20-Sided Tavern is an interactive live show D&D adventure where the audience, through the use of their cell phones, gets to play along and help make decisions. Like every time we take a turn, they decide whether it's left or right, or they have chances to like boost or subtract from rolls during a show, and they get to name every NPC we meet along the way, which becomes buck wild. And then there are ways that you can impact the story by you get rerolls, you help with death saving throws. Like the audience is the 4th player. We have 3 players on stage, and the audience is essentially the 4th player in the game. And then we have a dungeon master, and we've invented a role called the Tavern Keeper, which is making every dungeon master who comes to see the show jealous.
And drunk.
Yep. That's what we're doing. We're messing around with that a little bit. But yeah, we do a significant, not an insane amount of drinking on stage, but enough.
Does that violate some sort of union rule?
We are non-union.
If you were union, would that violate some sort of union rule?
Yes, it would.
Hey, I didn't. I had a hunch. That was like me sounding like flippant, but I was genuinely curious because
yeah. Oh no, absolutely no. It's a thing. We're mounting a show in Australia right now, and we've got a national tour coming up in February. And they went to Australia, and they're like, "All right, so here's the thing. First things first. The first thing the warrior player does is get up and crush a beer on stage." And they were like, "Nope. That's not happening. Can't do that in Australia. They've got all kinds of fun. Australia, you can't use actors from outside of Australia, and their union rules are like real locked in. So
wow.
We were having to change stuff.
So if you can't crush a beer, what is it, like a tablespoon of Vegemite?
Oh, God.
Oh, God. I guess he's Australian, so he's used to it.
Oh, someone out there, Colin Hayes, really going with that joke. That was for one person exactly.
I went to summer camp for a lot of years and had a lot of Australian counselors, and they just tried to get us to like Vegemite and or Marmite. I forget which one is which. Marmite's one of them British people eat, and one of them Australian people eat.
Vegemite is Australian because of I come from a land down under.
Right. Yes, we all know about getting smiled at and making a Vegemite sandwich. Yeah. Stuff's wild.
I just when I was working at the Daily Mail, the drunkest guy there, like the hardest drinking guy there, was the Australian guy, not the English guy. It's just surprising to me that that they have strict rules about drinking in Australia.
Right. I think they have to, right? Because they're all just descended from British criminals like me and my forefathers from Georgia. We all grew up in penal colonies, so it's just like, hey, we sent all our maniacs down there. We have to really enforce some rules, or it will get out of hand.
So how did this thing come about?
Yeah. We've been doing it for a long time. We've been working on it for a really long time. It came about from my half. There were sort of two places in deep pandemic, and I was on a Zoom call that was just like, I answered an ad on Extras Access. I was doing nothing, and I answered an ad that was like, do you like Dungeons and Dragons and improv and theater? And I was like, yes, I do. I like all of those things. Hook it up. And a bunch of people made a bunch of characters and sort of thought about what. We did a 2-week workshop and thought about what a, like an interactive D&D adventure would look like and would sound like and would play like. And we messed around with that for a couple of weeks. And then it was like, okay, cool, great. And simultaneously, the software was being developed by another crew of folks. And then those crews ran into each other, essentially. And we started doing the show in 2021 at the the old UCB theater, which was then the Asylum, which is now a condo in Chelsea, RIP. And we were doing it with like folding tables and crap that we bought at Party City, and the dungeon master on stage was talking to the tavern keeper who was not on stage yet, with like a AirPod in their ear. It was so low budget and so janky, but so fun. People immediately loved it, and it worked. So they did it at the Philly Fringe for like one show, and they did it at the Annoyance Theater for a small run, and then they went, okay, this is going to work. Let's take it to Pittsburgh. And that was sort of a big proof of concept show, and that's where I got brought in as a cast member. We went to Pittsburgh and did it at the Pittsburgh Light Opera Center's like cabaret show, and that one was punk rock as hell. Like there was a lot of drinking going on still, with too much, because there was the way that the stage was set up, we were sort of in the audience, and I had tables of people around me, and people would just buy you beers and hand them to you on stage. And we were like, okay. And there were so few rules, and they also had table service, right? So people could continue ordering drinks all the way through the show. But that was the first time we really got like projections in the room, and we had costumes in the room, and there was some production design. And again, people went nuts. The Yinzers loved it. And we weren't sure, like, we're taking this weird high concept nerd show into coal country, and they were all about it. And I had fun. It was the first time we did late night shows. So we do like a 10 o'clock, like R-rated show, and those got predictably rowdy. I think my favorite line from one of those is, I stood up and screamed, "Oh yeah? What's the AC on this motherfucker's dick?" And then shot an arrow at the big bad and killed him. And I will bleep those out if I need to.
It's all good. We're adults here.
Yeah.
As long as you don't get heat for your job for saying, "What's the AC on this dude's dick?"
Please. I did that at my job. And then, so Pittsburgh was great. And then a skeleton crew went and did it at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. That popped off as well.
Huge.
And then we did our first big production in the winter of 2022 into 2023 in Chicago, which is absolutely where you want to be in December and January.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Get that lake effect, baby. So we went and froze our butts off and did a full run. That was when we had like big projections, big lights. We've had Casey McGeorge on board for a long time, who is their other claim to fame is that they do lights and props and effects for Dimension 20 on Dropout, and they've been around with us forever. A lot of the look of the show is from them. And then all of a sudden, we were kind of struggling in Chicago, and then every nerd in the Midwest heard about the show, and it was awesome. It was a 700-seat theater, and it's in downtown Chicago, the Broadway Playhouse, and it's right next to the Ritz-Carlton. And they started having to open the theater 30 minutes earlier than they wanted to because there was a Ren fair outside banging on the door trying to get in and blocking the valet parking for the Ritz. It's just a bunch of people trying to come into Chicago and be fancy, and they had to drive through a bunch of elves. It was awesome.
I love it.
Yes, yeah, just elves and cosplay, and man, Chicago showed up hard. The Midwest showed up hard. I don't know what it is about, maybe it's an improv town or whatever, but we had a lot of fun. And then we were going to go on tour, and we got approached by Hasbro. Showed up, and they were like, "Hey guys, we've been thinking about doing something like this, and you guys seem to have done it. What's up?"
You've met Daddy Hasbro? The actual Daddy Hasbro?
I haven't met Daddy Hasbro. Oh. I myself have not met Steven Hasbro, or whatever their name is.
I imagine Daddy Hasbro is like Charlie and Charlie's Angels. It's like, "Hi, Charlie."
He's just a disembodied voice from the other room. Yeah. Yeah, the Wizard of the Coast comes in and he's like, "Hi, it's me, Prandolph. I'm here to hand down rules."
Hasbro is an abbreviation of the Hasenfeld brothers.
I knew it was bros. Yeah,
there were three of them: Henry, Hillel, and Herman.
How many Parker brothers were they? Did they ever get in a street fight?
Oh man,
I mean, clearly Parker Brothers isn't around anymore, so.
Yeah, take that.
Loser leaves town.
Yeah. Not enough. Get more brothers. Tell your mom and dad to work harder.
Should have had a first cousin, dude.
I went to Parker Brothers, and despite the name, it's apparently just founded by George Swinnerton Parker. I don't see another Parker involved.
George, are your brothers in the room with us now? Oh, yeah. We play Monopoly together every day. We love it.
Oddly enough, though, speaking of brothers being in the room, Parker Brothers, manufacturer of the Ouija board, based out of, wait for it, Salem, Massachusetts. Fun fact.
Yeah. Hey, interesting.
Oh, George's brother Charles joined the business in '88. So it was eventually Parker Brothers, but before that it was the George S. Parker Company. Yeah. Makes sense now. Lots of brothers in the game business.
Hey man, I mean, you gotta pull your brother in and be like, "Hey dude, let's go."
What were we talking about? I totally lost track.
Dungeons and Dragons.
So
I mean, that's pretty much the history of the show. And then
the emissary of Daddy Hasbro shows up.
Yeah, and we spent a long time ironing those details out, and then we launched this show that we're doing in New York this May, which has been wild. And the glow up is insane. Hambone's seen it. It's production wise pretty incredible. And again, the team that we had make the thing is the tech rehearsals were long and arduous, and that was it's an insanely intricate thing to run and produce.
I cannot stress enough the high level of craftsmanship and ingenuity that is the stage and the screen in the back of that stage for this show. I mean, for those who are maybe not familiar with New York, there's Broadway where you would see Cats, and off-Broadway, which is really not too far from Broadway, but it's, it depends on what people consider off-Broadway, but this is legitimately off-Broadway. It's on 42nd Street in New York City, right outside the Lincoln Tunnel. And the level of craftsmanship and ingenuity that went into this stage, if you had seen it on television, on any major network, you would not blink, because that is the level of quality of this stage. This is like network television game show quality on steroids.
Budget wise too, it's like it's Broadway show level. Like we dropped that amount of like time and energy into it. Also, just Broadway, off-Broadway, and off-Broadway has nothing to do with anything other than the size of the house.
That's it.
That's what's up. So if you're a 500 seat house or above, Broadway, Union, big stuff. And we have 499 seats. So like that's allows the Little Schubert Theater to like be off Broadway, do weirder stuff, have non-union tours come through, and we're gonna hopefully sit in it for a very long time. We're having a very good time.
Did they have 500 seats, or they were just like, get the screwdriver, we got to get rid of one?
Yes. we can if we want. There are room for 2 more seats.
That's amazing.
So it can turn itself into a full union Broadway house if it wants to.
That is a beautiful, I feel like a New York City story. Like like that's how the city runs.
Yep. Oh, you guys have to pay these taxes. Oh, do we? Steven, get the screwdriver. Shut up.
And I'll tell you this too: the quality of the performers as well. Like I was there on a night. I had Diego, Madeline, and Jasmine as the warrior, trickster, and mage, respectively. You were the dungeon master.
Yes.
I think that Alex was the tavern keeper that night.
Stomp would have been the tavern keeper.
Stomp was the tavern keeper. Also, it was birthday, which was fun.
Oh, that was a wild show.
It was a wild ass show. But like I liken it to that point when you've been playing with the same group for a couple of years and everyone is really comfortable with each other. Like, there's no more pretense amongst the group anymore. You're all soft pants friends. Like there's no one
we
trying to
spit
be
in each other's mouths sometimes. We are arguably too comfortable with each other.
But like because of that, the level of performance that you get out of it is that like at the table style performance where, your buddy does something like really weird and everyone just goes with it because you want to see where it goes. And ultimately it's very reminiscent of that kind of good time that you have when you're hanging out with your buds and everyone is real comfortable. Everyone's real chill and everyone is very cool being off the chain.
And the audience gets pulled into that attitude as well, which is really wonderful. And like a thing that has been present since, again, we were doing it with like paper plates and in basements, is that like the room, we wander around in the house for 30 minutes as the show is starting. So we're all out and about and hanging out, which also the famous people did too. Friggin' Felicia Day just wandered around in the house, like shaking people's hands and telling people how to log into their phones and being chill and cool.
My buddy got a picture with her, just like dicking around before the show.
Yep, she was hanging out, being friendly, and like, she was just like stick and move. She was like, I can't stay in one place or they'll line up. Abria, on the other hand, would just sort of hang out at the front of the stage and let people line up and come to her. But
also smart.
Yep, sure. The ushers every once in a while would have to be like, hey guys, you're blocking the fire exits. We're having a problem. But yeah, so we're out there, like we're in it and we're like high-fiving, and part of it is like welcoming people to your table every night and going like, hey, we're going to get weird. Hey, I like your shirt. Hey, let's be friends. We're all going to be friends tonight. We're doing this together, which is super unique for any sort of like, I mean, most productions don't do anything like that unless you're going to, God, not even like medieval times, right? Like we're the people that are going to be on it, which is funny. People are really cool beforehand, and then after the show will get weird because then they've turned into fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're pulling everybody in, and like you said, they're the fourth player. The audience in the room is the fourth player. You are screaming names and making subjections. And like we pull people up to play. We do some things where like instead of rolling a dice, we just are like, we're going to play giant Jenga. And there are going to be like rules, RPG rules that go along with that, and darts, which is, I think y'all have done an episode. It's Dread, right?
Yeah.
The Jenga one. Yeah. So we get some of that.
You did beer pong at one point?
Oh, yeah. Did we do beer pong? Man, did we win? I can't. They all blend together. Beer pong is notoriously the hardest one.
You had people like throwing it from like near the back row that actually made it to the stage and made it in. It was wild. Like, you're like, no, ain't no one going to be able to make that shot. And then swish.
Oh, that's right. I did. I ran way back and was just giving them. People love throwing balls at actors, man. they really enjoy
Better than
it.
tomatoes,
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess it depends on the ball, though.
Yeah. and the strength of the throw, man.
Fair
There's
play.
some people that will wind up from the first row and just zip a ping pong ball at your forehead.
But the mini games were great though on the phone, which was like, you're talking about, getting people like,
So that's Gameotics.
Yeah.
Is the software that we use. Yeah, you tap along to like, boost things. Sorry, I jumped on you, but
well, you have to edit it out later, so go for it.
how was your experience with playing them? Because I've played the game a billion times. It's not fun to me anymore.
It was awesome because like, it's a certain thing when you're in the theater where you are intended to be very quiet and still because something's unfolding on the stage. But here you're rowdy, you're laughing, you're enjoying yourself. And then just like, you guys encourage people to take pictures and video and share it on social media, which is unthinkable for the theater. But then like, while you got your phone out, you pull up a web-based thing where you're just like tapping along, trying to like play a mini game to land within a certain number of lines. You're voting on stuff. You are fully immersed in it and actually
Trivia
able
questions,
to,
riddles. Yeah.
The whole nine, man. And you're actually able to really affect the outcome of the show. And it's not like, you see things on TV sometimes where the audience is voting for stuff and you're like, are they really? Is this really happening? But like, no, if we hit zig, you will zig. If zag is voted for, you will zag. And it is fully legit.
It's fun as hell from an improv perspective too, because like a lot of times we're very comfortable with each other and sometimes they'll get too weird, like you said, but because we're getting so much from the room, it really does change a lot. Like just from the names, like if people start playing a weird game, I got in trouble for calling you out specifically for a name.
Really?
But yeah, we're not supposed to be like, we usually will walk up and be like, is it anybody's birthday, or get a random one. And I walked up and I said, raise your hand, please, if and only if I've been editing your podcast for 3 years. And Hambone was like, me?
But I'm like
they're like, don't do
celebrity in the RPG realms. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. We're not supposed to play favorites. We're supposed to keep it open to everybody. But
Bad, Alex. Come on.
I mean, listen, it's one of many emails that have been like, hey guys, we have found our limit. We keep finding limits on things. It's like, okay, that's that. That game's done now. Find a new game, idiots.
Yeah.
And we do. We do keep finding new games. But yeah, it's so much from the audience. And it is like the stakes are real. Like so, and also the end of the show, we're all trying to complete a ritual together to stop chaos from taking over and destroying the world. And we're collecting magical items. You can beef it so hard. And it's weird to get to the end of a show where everybody's been having fun for 2 hours and then be like, the ritual has failed. The party is dead. The world is screwed. And tomorrow's show, everything you start off with having like -3s to roll. So like if you do a bad job, there are 3 like paths that the next show can take, right? So one audience does a bad job and the world is fucked up and scary and weird and full of chaos at the next show. And so it starts off harder. All the checks are harder. All the bad guys are harder. Everything's more difficult. So we can get stuck you can get stuck 3 or 4 shows and like, oh God, we're never getting out of the hard mode. Like, yeah.
And do you like tell the audience that at the start of the show? Because like, hey guys, the day performance really goofed this one up, guys. So we're gonna really need you to.
Absolutely, we have a big thing where you come out and an audience member comes up on stage and they do a roll at the outset to see if they're gonna drink poison or ambrosia, and to take a shot with somebody on stage, and they roll a big giant die, and depending on how the show went the show before, they either get a +3 or a -3 or a -1 or a +1 to that roll. And it's just a 10. They just have to beat a 10. And I mean, a God, when they roll a 1 or a 20 on that first roll, like the room just goes insane.
Yeah, I mean, because like when Sally, my wife, and I were watching it, in full disclosure, folks, I knew a guy. I happened to get comp tickets, but this episode is sponsored by no one. As you'll all know, your old buddy HP has been trying to sell out for years, but no one's buying. But we're trying to.
This is payback. You're promoting the show right now.
Yeah,
it's at least for exposure. This is
fair play.
Trade.
Yeah. But we're watching the show and the players getting low on hit points, and I was like, man, I think one of them's gonna die. And I was like, nah, man, this it's a show, man. It's feel good. There ain't no way someone's gonna die. And then they got like real low, and I'm like, oh my God, one of the characters might actually die.
I was trying so hard to kill him too, man. Like I wanted you to see death saves. I was trying to trot the whole show out for you, and I just couldn't do it. The dice wouldn't let me. Dice would not let me.
The dice always decide, man. The dice always decide. But yeah, I think that's like the coolest thing to know, that like, hey, it's D&D. People die.
We have legit TPKs on stage.
So what happens when you die? Do you just like dip back, start doing shots with the tavern keeper? Like,
I wish. So we do have death saves. So like when you hit 0, we have a mechanic for like we're gonna do the whole audience has a chance to like boost it, and then they just do one big death save. And so you either come back with 1 hit point, or you beef it. And when you die, you turn into a ghost.
Okay.
We can't send a third of the audience home and be like, thanks guys, that was fun. But yeah, we have rules in place for you to like, your spirit clings to the mortal plane because you have unfinished business, and then that gets wild because now there's one improviser on stage that like the other 2 can't see, don't know he's still there. We take a minute for them to like mourn or bury their fallen comrade. Every once in a while, it happens real early in the show. We had somebody in like the combat tutorial roll a nat 1 on a Melf's Minute Meteors, and it exploded at their feet, and they did 48 points of damage to themselves, and they were dead. And the audience, and we had an hour and 40 minutes of show left. We had an intermission to get through, and it was like, all right, well, your buddy's dead, so you're on to the rest of this adventure with 2 people saddled with the emotional baggage of watching your friend having exploded themselves while trying to kill an urchin in an alleyway. And you know, that shaped the show. You know, the other 2 were worried about death a lot for the rest of it. Man. Yeah, it's wild. The decisions we make. Do you guys know what twine is?
Yeah.
It's so that's twine is what we use to like run the script of the show.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's really choose your own adventure. Like every time we go left or right, we're actually going left or right to different areas that have different things, that have different possibilities. So choices super duper matter. Like every time the audience goes, "Oh, we're gonna go left here," it's like, well, then you're definitely not getting this thing, and this thing because they're all to the right. So it's not quite sandboxy. It is on the rails, but like, you know, we're pulling rail switches.
Well, it's a one-time thing. Like you're never going to see the rails. There's so many things, you know, between you and the rails, basically. Like you have a whole audience that is like messing with adding static to the fact that like they're never going to see the rails.
Absolutely. Yeah. And making and remaking rails and nonsense. And yeah, it's very fun. And the show keeps opening up the more we do it. People just start standing up and grabbing their action card and being like, I do this. And when you're the dungeon master in front of a bunch of people with a timer on for when you need to get stuff done, you're like, okay, like, all right, I guess we're fireballing this carpenter shop because you're mad at the NPC in there. Sure. Let's see if the show will support this.
Well, because that's the other thing too. There is a very finite amount of time that you have from A to B in the show. And an intermission, which is, you know, unlike, you know, sitting at a gaming table with your buddies where you're like, 3 hours, 4 hours goes by, whatever, we'll order another pizza, let's go. But you're like, oh no, folks, we're on the clock here. Like it's hammer time.
Yeah, I mean, we got to get out because or we start paying the union carpenters overtime and stuff. So we got to get out of there. Man, I was DMing for the first time in like a month by my actual table, and we were in the middle of a real like crunchy ass dungeon dive, right? Like a just gnarly, just combat, take it to traps everywhere. And it took me about 30 minutes to remember that no one was looking at us. I was like, oh, right. Yeah. Okay. It's okay. I don't have to, we can let the jokes come and the fun come. I can sit here for 10 minutes and let these idiots decide whether to go left or right. I'm not they can do that. Sweet. I'm gonna get a beer.
You mentioning twine actually reminded me or made me realize that this is reminding me. Are you familiar with parsley?
No.
So parsley, you should get this. I think you'll enjoy it. Jared Sorensen made it. It's basically what if Infocom style text adventures, except the computer is shouting the descriptions to an audience, and that the group is voting on collectively what path to take, or like I think it goes in order. Everybody does a parses a text command, like group interactive text adventure.
I gotta check that out. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds wild. It's a system for making those?
He has a whole bunch of pre-programmed, like,
sweet.
It's great. He claims to have run it for like upwards of 160 people, and I was just like, get out of town. But now that I'm listening to you talk about this show, I'm just like, that's very doable. I think maybe
we've got our own servers in the theater.
Wow.
We had to bring in. Yeah, we have to. I mean, we've just got the, like, you know, when we started doing it, the like Wi-Fi router at, you know, whatever theaters cannot handle everybody being on them and like actively using them constantly. It was a big problem in Edinburgh. They just like couldn't. They were in, you know, one of the fringe theaters and they just weren't set up for it.
Oh, those fringe theaters are definitely not set up for it, man.
No.
They're set up for stand-up comedy, small band, you know?
Yep. Yeah, they'd run in. I was not there, which is okay. But the crew that was there, they would run in and like they set up dice cameras are also the like huge innovation of the show. We have friggin' cameras on the dice, and we have we're running just a stream deck right back behind the Dungeon Master and the Tavern Keeper are doing combat effects on the big giant video screen board, and in conjunction we have a stream deck that we're doing that and pulling up and down cameras with. So it's just another thing that you're doing visually also running the game, also controlling a room of hundreds of nerds who are ready to get overly rowdy at any second. But dice cams, pulling them up and down is one of the things that we do. And that was our big, I mean, that's the big innovation. We were, I tell this story all the time. In Pittsburgh, we were doing the show. And we have just a little camera sitting over a dice tray, and we pull it up so that everybody can see every D20 roll, so we know what's going on. So the whole room together can get excited and then release or be sad. And somebody threw a die, and one of their action cards flipped over on top of it. And this was like for like the last hit in BBEG combat. And he went, and he just flipped it over, like casually flipped it, and it was a 20. And the man sitting next to me, I was not on stage, I was in the audience. The man sitting next to me stood up and threw his chair across the theater. The room erupted, and he was just like, yeah, and just chucked a chair, because it's that level of like, oh, like roulette, you know, it's murder nerd gambling is all we're all doing together. Yeah. And the fact that we can make everybody see that roll is every time somebody chucks a die and there's a nat 20 and there's a huge sound sting, and the room goes nuts. Like everybody stands up out of their chairs and screams and yells. It's something else. We did a re-roll, and Felicia on her last show chucked one at the very last moment on a decider. So that's like every possible high stakes there were on the big giant dice, and rolled a 20, and it was like people just screamed for a calendar minute. It was wild.
Oh yeah, I mean, because listen, a lot of people who are going to this thing, understandably, are people who are fans of Dungeons and Dragons, and whether they know the player's modifier or not, like, you know, if you see someone roll a 3, they're like, fuck
shit,
you know, someone rolls a 17 or better, you're like, all right, we're good, we got some action, this is gonna happen now. But you know, one thing, you know, speaking to, you know, a lot of people who go to this are just really into D&D, what I thought was really great about it was, you know, I saw 2 different types of families in the lobby before and after the show. The first one was, you know, parents who brought their kids there, and their kid is like, well, a slot is this, just so you know, because, you know, when we go back in there for the second act, like, this is why this is so important. And like, their kids are explaining to their parents like what everything means, and the parents are just taking it. And they're just taking it and supporting their kid, which I thought was the coolest thing in the world. And then there's the other side of that, which I call the Iron Maiden effect, which is, you know, a generational gathering of people who like something that's like so important to them. Like when I went and saw Iron Maiden, the last time I saw Iron Maiden, and even the time before that, it was dudes who were there since Paul Di'Anno, right? And then dudes who were there maybe like younger than me, whose kids are now like 6-7 years old, wearing Iron Maiden t-shirts, throwing up the irons, like singing along to every word. And it's like, it's an amazing thing to see that, you got like someone whose dad maybe started with the Red Box, and now they've brought their kid into it and they play D&D with their kid. They took them to like this big show, and like, everyone's going home happy, man.
Yeah, if you want your kid to grow up a juggalo, you got to put Faygo in that bottle, baby. You got to get him early.
Got to get him early, man.
And it's pretty great. You can track, if you catch the children's names, you can usually track which family that they're in, right? If the kid's name is Ben and he's yelling at his mom and dad about slad lords, then you're like, okay, all right, he's trying to inundate them,
right?
And if the kid's name is Thor, then his parents have brought him, and he's at an R-rated comedy show at like 7 o'clock at night on a Friday, and he's ready to get rowdy.
Yeah,
it's great. It's really cool. We have had Cassidy, one of the other DM bar swings, had someone come up to her after a show and say, "Hey, I didn't understand my kid before this. Thank you. Like, my kid has they just decided they were going to get into Dungeons and Dragons, and they love it, and I have never understood what the appeal was or why they liked it, and like, now I get it. Now I understand why my kid loves this. Thank you so much." And like, that is to be able to like, I mean, this is my whole goal as a human being, is to bridge the gap between nerds and not nerds and be like, guys, we're literally all the same. Like, if you're tailgating at a football game and dressing up and screaming and yelling because the thing that you want to happen happens, that's also Dungeons and Dragons. Like, that's also role-playing games. Like, this is all the same stuff. Oh, I hope it happens. Touchdown, nat 20, kill the guy. Yes, Strahd's dead. We beat the Jets. Super Bowl win. Yes. Like, it's all the same. That, like, building tension and releasing it is what we're all obsessed with. And it's really great to, like, convert people. It's a really easy way for us to, you're only going to be in there for 2 hours. So if you hate it, that's okay. And, if you really hate it, there's fun lights to look at, if nothing else.
I genuinely think the only people who would not enjoy this show from an objective standpoint are people who don't like fun.
Yeah.
That's
how I feel about football games, that a lot of nerds disagree with me. So
yeah. You go to watch football to be excited. You watch baseball to have a conversation. I get it.
You go to baseball so that you have a nice hot dog picnic with some like sort of athletic dudes playing a game in front of you.
That's it.
This sounds like the part where we should go home, but I have one more question. All of this sounds like really barely constrained chaos.
Yeah.
Especially when you're involving large numbers of people who are drinking late at night.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep this thing on the rails? How do you keep the wheels on this thing? And
practice.
But like, not just for the individual show, but like for a run of shows. Like, how are you like is this like Motley Crue circa 1988? Like you guys like
I mean, practice is the dumb, like, easy answer, but also like everybody who's in the show is like a really weird quintuple threat, right? Like, we are producing a sort of new breed of live performer, and it helps to have improv experience. It really helps to have stand-up experience. I've got a lot of stand-up experience, so I'm really good at controlling a room. And we established from the outset that the Dungeon Master's in charge, and it's the Dungeon Master's job to not let things get out of control. But also, we get an audience member on stage for a bit, and the last show, Tuesday night, this dude just snapped and just grabbed the microphone right out of Abria Iyengar's hand and took the stage and started trying to like get names from interact with the audience. And that was like, hey man, no. And we just shut that down real fast. Like, somebody just walked over and grabbed the mic and pulled him back, and I was like, hey buddy, this isn't your moment. This is you're in our show still. And into his ear. And I watched that happen from the audience. It was like, oh, he just got talked to. And sometimes you just have to do that. Sometimes you have to stand. I've stood and looked at an audience that's screaming at me and been like, hey guys, I worked with kindergartners for like 10 years. I'll wait, idiots. And you just have to be in charge. You just have to be in charge. Especially with the drinking, especially with the screaming. Matinee crowds are actually really wild because a lot of kids, a lot of families. Yeah. And if you've got a 13-year-old's birthday party and like a whole row of this stage is 13-year-olds who think the funniest thing to do is like name every NPC boner lover, then like you just have to shut it down, or you have to, if somebody tries to get out of control, you have to like take it and like twist it, and you get really good and really quick at like somebody saying something inappropriate and you change it. It's like somebody tried to name the first NPC Clitoria the Unpleasable.
I knew we would get a big laugh out of this question.
Clitoria the Unpleasable, and somebody was just like, okay, Clint Oria of the Fantasy Connecticut Orias. All right, Clint, let's talk to Clint. And so you get the big laugh, and then we're right back on the rails. Like, we're not saying this over and over again. Yeah. We're going to call him Clint for the next scene, and everybody will know what's up. And you just sort of have to rein it in. Like, it's give and take. I don't know. Have you ever ridden a horse?
No. I have.
Well,
they're large muscles. No way, man.
Yeah, dude. They're big, huge animals. And like you have to make sure that the saddle is on right. You gotta check that thing because you're riding a big ass animal, and you gotta make sure that like all the tack is there and ready to go. So we have a pre-flight checklist that is like we spend a lot of time checking in with each other before a show, talking to each other, making sure everybody knows where everybody's at. We circle up, we check in like, hey, physically, where are you? Emotionally, where's everybody? We really gotta do this together. And then you have to ride the horse slowly at first, right? And get it used to where you're doing. And there's a lot of give and take with the reins, and you learn when to like kick it and when to pull back. And like sometimes if you try to stop too fast, it gets mad and tries to throw you off. And it's just, so you just gotta like, it really is. I've never made this metaphor for the show before, and I'm really enjoying it. It is a lot like that.
It works really well. I feel like I'm understanding the pull and push of the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's wild.
You've DM'd a bajillion games, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine you're doing that, but also there are 500 people sitting around you guys watching it, and you have to also entertain them.
Let me tell you, I don't want to pretend that at all.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
It's an absolutely stark, terrifying thought.
Yeah.
I could barely keep it together for 10 people in my March game.
Yeah.
Fair play.
And we're getting a thing too now. I can't believe Brendan Lee Mulligan's about to do it at Madison Square Garden. That's wild.
Good for him.
And I mean, he's, everybody respects him more than they respect me. They don't know who I am. And
they will one day, buddy. Chin up.
They do 2 hours later, And it's wild. The difference also we're finding with people who, I think this is also when people take their actual plays on the road too. They're like, oh, there's all the people are here, right? We've got these Dimension 20 people now come in, and they're like, oh yeah, sitting in the dome with the comfort of an edit and cameras is really great. Can't do that here.
No.
They'll literally throw a thing at you. Yeah.
Well, Alex, this is something that I can't recommend enough for listeners to go see.
Thanks, man.
I had a blast. Again, just want a quick shout out, Diego, Madeline, Jasmine, and Alex. The other Alex, because it was a show that had me thinking about it the next day and genuinely excited to want to see the thing again, which it's hard to get me off the bench to even go to see a movie twice in the theaters, but I definitely want to get back to the 20-Sided Tavern. Shows run Thursday through Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. Thursdays through Tuesdays. We're Dark Wednesdays. 2 shows every Saturday and Sunday. If you do want to bring the family, those are the PG-13s, or those matinees on Saturday and Sunday, and we try to keep it PG-13 on Tuesday nights as well. But doesn't always happen. Other than that, you're coming to a big, rowdy, goofy show, and I'll throw out, we usually have codes and things for tickets and 2-for-1s, but at 20-Sided Tavern on the Instagram is the easiest way to, get access to those.
Yeah, check out the Instagram. There are deals going on all the time. I just saw something pop up the other day. You can go to the 20sidedtavern.com to get tickets as well. They got a new party member coming. Erica Ishii is arriving December 5th to the 17th. And it's a limited time engagement. So you never know who's going to show up and join the cast at the 20-Sided Tavern. Real quick, because we actually did talk about something off air.
Yeah,
because we do a thing at the end of every episode. I'm going to give you a little inside baseball here, dear listener. We talked to the guests. We say, this is a pretty good time to go home. And Stu just mentioned that, but Alex mentioned that he could probably do the whole ending that I do himself, which I'm going to let him do it just a second. But I have to say this for your old buddy HB here. This episode is dropping on the 21st of October. On the 22nd, I'm launching my very first backer kit. Going on 5 years doing 3-2-1 action RPG, we're finally doing an expanded rule book. It's going to have 4 extra adventures in there. The Encyclopedia Monstergoria as well, which is a separate book. It's a monster book, so you get the best of both worlds. If you're an old school action player, you get an expanded rule book, some adventures, and a monster book. If you're coming to the world for the first time, I would really genuinely appreciate it, dear listener, if you just took a boogie on down to backer kit. Any kind of link on any of my social media will take you there. Just consider back in 3-2-1 action RPG. We put a lot of heart in this, put a lot of work into this. So check out our expanded rule book and our Encyclopedia Monstergoria, October 22nd, only on backer kit. And with that, Alex.
Well, very cool. This has been another great... This has been another wonderful episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. Stu, where can the people find you on the internet?
They can find me on thevintagerpg.com. It's a website. There's posts and pictures, and it's like the Instagram, but better.
Very cool. If you really want to, why don't you tell people to rate, review, and subscribe to the show? Really, every follow really does help expand the... I was really confident. I've heard it a lot of times. You can follow me on the internet at @RAlexMurray. I'm going places. I'm doing things. I've got some cons coming up. I'm really posting a lot more. I'm doing things. So yeah, follow me on the TikToks. Follow me on the Instagrams. And if you really like the show, why not become a patron? We've got a great Discord community that we'd love you to be part of. At the one level, you can join in on a game with Hambones running every month. I think right now he's running
Eat the Reich.
Ooh, Eat the Reich. Yes, amazing. Or at the $10 level, you can get in on Stu's West Marches campaign that he runs every month, and that is excellent. Please rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help other listeners to find us. And yeah, till next time. Did I get it all?
You got it all.
Until next time, this is Alex Murray for John Hambone McGuire and Stu Horvath. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dega West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.